Welcome everyone to Lassen Volcanic National Park, one of my favorite national parks in the country. This place is so underrated, so cool, and we're here in the summer. Everything should be open. It's going to be a great time to be here. And it's actually my third time at Lassen, only my second time on camera, and my first time on camera was way back in 2022 when my video quality was nowhere near as good, so I'm super excited to bring this video to you guys.
I'm absolutely stoked to see this park. It's been on my bucket list for years. Even though it's not like super famous, it's just always been like really intriguing to me. The fact that it's kind of like a smaller Yellowstone is just really cool, so I cannot wait to check this place out.
For context, Lassen Volcanic National Park can be found in northeastern California, roughly an hour east of Redding. It started as two separate national monuments designated by President Theodore Roosevelt in 1907, but that area was combined and established as a national park in 1916, following a series of eruptions that occurred on Mount Lassen. Today, Lassen Volcanic National Park is one of the few areas in the world where all four types of volcanoes can be found: plug dome, shield, cinder cone, and stratovolcano. In terms of a layout, there are several units making up this national park, but the main unit surrounding Lassen Peak is really the heart and soul of the place. Here, you'll find the Volcanic Legacy Scenic Byway, which runs for 30 miles across this portion of the park, connecting the south and north entrances. Due to excessive snowfall, this road is only open from summer to fall, and since it provides access to many of the park's best and most popular attractions, that's really the only time I'd recommend visiting Lassen Volcanic. This is where I want to briefly run down my past two visits to the park, which I mentioned in the intro. My first came in May 2022 during my first ever road trip I did for Travel Dash, when sadly it was a bit too early into the season and most of the park was closed. I only got a taste of Lassen Volcanic back then, but I absolutely fell in love with the scenery on offer. I eagerly awaited a return trip which came in the fall of 2023, and though I had a much more complete experience, I sadly lost the footage that I shot, so I was unable to make a video highlighting that redemption visit. It wouldn't be until the summer of 2025 that I'd have another opportunity to shoot the park and all that it has to offer, also showing Evan around for his first time, which I was stoked for. But the threat this time was still that we may have come a little early, not because the road wasn't available, but because there had been a ton of snow during the off-season that had the potential to cause problems during our visit. We were also restricted to one day in the park due to a tight schedule on our road trip, so we attempted to cram in all of the major stuff that normally would take 2 days to see. You'll have to wait and see how it all went, but first, we could rejoice as it was time to experience Sulfur Works, a quick and easy stop down at the southern entrance. This is one of Lassen Volcanic's most popular geothermal features due to how easily accessible it is. You simply park up and walk over, and even when the scenic byway is closed, oftentimes you'll be able to reach Sulfur Works by trekking a few miles, which I did all the way back in 2022. So this wasn't anything new to me, but I always consider it a must stop, especially since it's so interesting. Sulfur Works provides visitors with a glimpse into the volcanic activity that shaped the region. It's a vent for the last rumblings of a long-dead volcano, and yet it is also reborn each day as forces of erosion continuously alter the landscape. A prime example is during my last two visits, there was an additional pool along the adjacent hillside. Now, it's void of anything except for a little bit of steam rising from the cracks. The main attraction now more than ever is this large bubbling pool right along the road, which you can walk around and feel the warmth of the steam from. It's amazing how cold it gets in the mornings here, and then you just stand in front of Sulfur Works and suddenly you are all warmed up. What a cool spot.
That was awesome. It's such a great introduction to the park and just a really cool geothermal spot.
It was then time to proceed up the Volcanic Legacy Scenic Byway, the south half of which is one of my favorite stretches of road in any national park. This section demonstrated both the flourishing, beautiful green parts of the park as well as the sections that have been devastated by wildfires. We stopped off at Diamond Point, which is an absolutely incredible viewpoint. You see so much from here, but also it really highlights the amount of fire that has hit this area over the past couple of years, starting in 2021 with the Dixie Fire, which is one of the most devastating in the region. Man, it's just surreal to see all of these dead trees, but the area will bounce back and be more beautiful than ever. Following a quick stop at Diamond Point, we then made our way to Emerald Lake, and along the way got our first glimpses of Lassen Peak, which I'll talk more about later. Bro, we made a quick stop at the Emerald Lake pullout, which I've actually never seen before, and you know what I've definitely never seen? A lake in this park iced over. This is incredible. Oh, just broke through. Oh, look. Oh my gosh.
That's so cool.
Emerald Lake is already stunning for its color, content, and clarity, but the fact that it had this layer of ice and snow over it was astounding. But little did we know that would only be an appetizer to Lake Helen just a few minutes away. I've been to Lake Helen before, but I have not seen it like this. This is unfathomable. Are you joking me?
I have no words for it.
I think Lake Helen is alone worth a stop for how incredible of a compliment it is to Lassen Peak in the background, but we also lucked out with the timing of our visit when it came to seeing lakes unlike anything else we'd ever seen before. First and foremost, you had that perfect turquoise color that you could tell had only been formed recently as a result of the snow thawing. But then behind it were all these patterns in the lake caused by the ice layer left over from the snow melt. I captured this zoom-in shot on my phone that I'm super proud of because I think it really showcases how unbelievably trippy and surreal this was. Though admittedly, we were alarmed by the sheer amount of snow present because of what we had on our agenda next. We are about to embark on the Lassen Peak Trail. This takes you to the summit of the southernmost major mountain in the Cascade Mountain Range that extends from California up to British Columbia, Canada.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this. This looks like it's going to be incredible. So it's going to be a doozy of a hike, but I think it's going to be so worth it.
The reason I've refrained from talking about Mount Lassen so far is because I wanted to save it for this segment in which we attempt to summit the mountain via the Lassen Peak Trail. This way you can better understand the intensity of this hike and the drive to complete it. Now, because the trailhead is situated a bulk of the way up as is, you're only climbing 1,971 feet of elevation gain. I mean, I say only, but it's pretty wild. Across 4.9 miles round trip, that makes the Lassen Peak Trail easily the most difficult hike in the park. As I roll footage from the first portion, I feel it's worth mentioning what makes Mount Lassen so special. Standing at a height of 10,457 feet, not only is Lassen the southernmost major mountain in the Cascade Range, as I said, but it's also the largest plug dome volcano in the world. Before the eruption of Washington's Mount St. Helens in 1980, Lassen Peak was the only Cascade volcano to have erupted in the 20th century. This is what's responsible for so much of the beauty visible in the park today. As we made our way to the endless series of switchbacks that climbed the southeastern slopes of Lassen Peak, perhaps it's already clear to you that this is one of the snowiest mountains anywhere in California. And especially due to our lack of spikes, we became worried that if we had already encountered this much snow, who's to say what the higher elevations could look like? Although, to be fair, it was clear to us that the trail was designed in such a way that it avoids the worst of these patches, plus there were so many people out and about of varying ages, which gave us a boost in confidence. But things took a turn for the worse when we lost sight of the trail and were seemingly forced to navigate through a steep patch of snow if we wanted to continue. We realized about halfway up the trail that we were just stupid. We went up that patch of snow without spikes. It was pretty sketchy, we were on ledges. But you really don't even need to do that. You can go a little off trail and just navigate around the snow.
Oh, well, we made it. We're just kind of stupid. We took the hardest way possible.
Keep in mind as you're watching this that the wind was crazy, as it tends to be on most mountain summit routes, so that stretch through the snow was petrifying, and we made sure to work our way around it heading back. On another note, though the switchbacks were becoming increasingly tough on our legs, the views were only getting better the higher we went. In 2023, I did complete the Lassen Peak Trail in a time where far less snow was present, but sadly it didn't really amount to anything since clouds were engulfing us at around this point. So that's another reason I was so determined to make it to the top, since I had no idea what Lassen's summit views even looked like. But I can't lie, it would have been worth it for this alone. The unobstructed look at the mountains surrounding Lassen Peak are beautiful as is, but with the inclusion of all that snow, man was it something special. Not to mention, you could look down and see Lake Helen from earlier, which was so frickin' wild. We kept pushing towards the summit, climbing higher and higher with seemingly no end in sight, if not for these trail markers, which gave us the extra bit of motivation we needed. Then, before we could process it, we were standing 10,000 feet above sea level, atop what I believe to be the highest mountain I've ever summited. Look, I'm no rock climber, I don't seek out 14ers on a day-to-day basis like some people do. I'm just someone who appreciates the great outdoors, and I thought this was very, very accomplishing. Oh my gosh, we did it! We're over 10,000 feet in the air on top of Lassen Peak. This is incredible!
This is unbelievable. So cool.
Lassen Peak Summit provides one of the best views I've personally seen in California, with a 360-degree panorama of endless mountains. It felt like we could see for ages, and there's a few features I particularly wanted to highlight. To the southeast, Lake Almanor is basically where the closest civilization to the park is situated, so that's pretty surreal. To the east, and this was really faint, Cinder Cone was in sight, one of the most prominent natural landmarks in the park and something we visit later on in the video. And most amazing of all is Mount Shasta out in the distance, which towers 14,179 feet in the air and is the second highest peak in the Cascade Range, just 232 feet shorter than Mount Rainier in Washington. We took in the view for a little longer and then started to make our way down, reflecting on what we just experienced. But while we were navigating switchbacks, there was a group of people who had a different idea of how to get back down. Now, I want to talk about Bumpass Hill, the park's most iconic geothermal site. I didn't mention this, but the main trailhead for it is located back at Lake Helen. But the reason we passed right on by is because it opens weeks later than the rest of the spots along the scenic byway. This is because that part of the park is especially snow prone, which was obvious to us judging by the sheer amount of it surrounding the lake. Next up, we're heading out to Bumpass Hell, which I'm so excited for. It's easily the most impressive geothermal site here at Lassen. That being said, we're here a little too early on in the season, so we can't take the normal Bumpass Hell trail to the site. So instead, your alternative is, instead of a 3.5 mile, you're doing a 5 mile, starting at the Kings Creek picnic area, and you're going through a lot of burnt forest. Not too much elevation gain, I wouldn't call it flat either, but I'm actually looking forward to this because this is a route I haven't seen before. So this trail that we'd be using is a far less known about route that takes you the back way into Bumpass Hell, and then once you're there, no need to worry about snow because the warmth from the geothermal features take care of it. For this, make sure you begin at the Kings Creek picnic area, not the Kings Creek trailhead, as that's mainly used to get to a waterfall called Kings Creek Falls. It's actually a really pleasant trail. I got to do it back in 2023, but it was one of the things we had to cut since we only had a day in the park this time around. On the contrary, this trail is predominantly used to access Cold Boiling Lake, and so few of the people we talked to knew you could continue to Bumpass Hell from there. And it's really a shame because the trail is honestly just okay up to that point, though it was interesting to see the destruction of the forest firsthand. So what is Cold Boiling Lake? Well, this is yet another geothermal feature, but it's disguised as though it were any old lake. What makes it unique are the cold gases which bubble up through the water, making it appear to be super hot when in reality it's not. It was good to check it out for my first time, but it's really just the beginning of a seriously underrated hike. This is where your 900 feet of elevation gain starts to kick in. There's actually more than I originally expected, but the views are just sensational as you trek along this hillside. Not only do you get a fascinating peek of the burnt forest within these mountains, but there's actually another lake you only get to see from afar. Still, it's a wonderful complement to the scene, and you really don't lose sight of it until you reach Bumpass Hell. There's also the super tall cascade splitting the trail, so you'll have to cross it, but it's not anything difficult, just something to spice things up. Then eventually you'll round a corner, and this is where we had to navigate through some patches of snow, but again, nothing all that challenging. That initial reveal of Bumpass Hell is otherworldly, with gurgling pools of varying shapes and colors. Also underrated are the surrounding hills that have a yellowish gold tint to them, which are directly caused by the geothermal activity. Now, the National Park Service was awesome enough to build this impeccable boardwalk through Bumpass Hill despite the fact that it's only available for a small fraction of the year. It is an absolute joy to experience, one of the must-sees in the park. Just be sure to remain on the designated trail so you don't disturb the environment. It is very sensitive and fragile. At the far end, you could see where the main path would meet with the boardwalk. It didn't even seem like any rangers had touched it, so perhaps they let Mother Nature do its thing instead. And then right around there was an overlook where you could see the entire basin out in front of you, and that was sensational. You've got to look out for all the intricate details here, like once you spot all the little steam vents and mud pots hiding around, it's honestly overwhelming in the best way possible. What an incredible place. You cannot be serious. That was unbelievable. With the snow too, that just added another layer to it. The colors, man, the geothermal activity, that is over the top incredible.
Yeah, it's just all the colors everywhere. Seeing the steam vents, the bubbling water, the turquoise water, the gray water, everything. It's just, it really is an incredible spot and something like you really just like can't understand until you come see it in person and see it and smell it with your own nose and eyes.
As we continue along the scenic byway, I noticed as the road loops around the eastern side of Mount Lassen that the landscape makes that shift from brown to green again. It's just so curious how some areas are so badly affected and others are thriving. Now, the upper half of the road honestly isn't close to as interesting as the lower half, as you spend most of your time in the forest, but every now and then you will spot Lassen Peak, and that was pretty cool. Speaking of which, we decided to make a stop at Manzanita Lake since we were passing by, and if you're a photographer or a videographer, you will absolutely love this place. Alright, we are at Manzanita Lake. We're going to check out a small portion of this trail, which I haven't done in a number of years, but it provides some of the best possible views of Mount Lassen, and with the lake foreground, it's really beautiful. In my opinion, this is where you're going to want to go if you want the best possible base views of Mount Lassen. It appears unbelievably imposing, and that's honestly what I love most about these peaks in the Cascade Range. Compared to other major mountains, these appear to be standing alone, and to an extent there is some truth to that as they tend to have a large prominence in their respective areas. I also love Manzanita Lake because you get this perfect reflection of Lassen Peak from its northern end. Pro tip, unless you're seeking out the 2-mile loop around its perimeter, in which case I would suggest starting from the visitor center, you can actually hit roadside parking right near the northern stretch. These spots come up right after the park's northern entrance, so they aren't super well known about, but nevertheless a great way to shave off a few miles of hiking. Manzanita is kind of a hidden gem in this park, and fun fact, a lot of the times when the park is closed due to snow, you can still access this, and it's a great alternative to a lot of the other hikes that we've shown off in this video today that are seasonal. But yeah, it's just amazing the views you can get of Mount Lassen. You might be thinking, if they're exiting the park, that's gotta be it, right? After all, we'd already hiked over 12 miles. But nope, we meticulously planned to tackle another unit of Lassen Volcanic, and we did it at the end because it's actually really far removed from the rest of the park. An hour drive northeast of the main unit's northern entrance is the Butte Lake District. There are several miles of gravel road there at the end, but I've always found it to be smooth enough for any vehicle. This will take you right up to the Butte Lake campground along with the namesake Butte Lake. You can't see a lot of it from here, but at the far end you may have noticed that it's almost entirely surrounded by lava rock. This leads me to delve into the Cinder Cone Trail, which is a 4-mile round-trip hike with nearly 1,000 feet of elevation gain, to an unbelievably outstanding payoff, but it also happens to pass what have been named the fantastic lava beds. You'll be walking alongside this for most of the trail, and in order for me to tell you how it was created, I have to introduce you to the Cinder Cone. This is what makes this unit of the park an absolute must-visit regardless of your time constraints. The now 700-foot tall volcanic cone last erupted in the 17th century, forming the cone itself along with the corresponding lava field and something called the Painted Dunes. Now up to this point in the trail it has been mostly flat, but the bulk of the difficulty here comes in the form of this spiral around the cinder cone, which packs in hundreds of feet of elevation gain up loose gravel-like cinders. These cause you to slip with every step, making it feel like walking on sand or frozen snow. If you've visited one of the national parks centered around sand dunes, then you know exactly how it feels to climb this thing. It is seriously a pain in the butt and doesn't seem like it'll ever end, but you must complete it if you're physically able because the top reveals one of the greatest viewpoints in California, period. Almost immediately you'll see Mount Lassen out in the distance, probably the best view of it in the entire park. It is more imposing than ever from here. You can also see inside of the Cinder Cone. The way it dips down is intriguing to say the least, and there is an option to spur trail to the bottom for those interested. But best of all is an overlook from the other side that shocked me to my core when I first saw it in 2023. You've got all of the fantastic lava beds down at the bottom with one massive lake on each side, and most impressive of all, the Painted Dunes. These smooth, rounded ash deposits contain vibrant red and orange hues that are actually super vibrant in person. If I zoom in on the formations, you can really see just how striking the color is, and it's made possible because of a process called oxidation. It's the result of iron oxide minerals, which are caused by hot lava flow merging with volcanic ash. I've truly never seen anything like this before, and if it weren't so windy, I'd want to be up here for hours. The last thing on our mind was how much we'd hike that day, but it really was one of the toughest days I've ever had in a national park. With a long drive to our next destination though, we had to wrap up an unforgettable visit to Lassen Volcanic, one of the state's biggest hidden gems and best national parks. Cinder Cone is absolutely ridiculous, and we are the only ones here right now. I cannot believe this place. It's still my favorite spot and view in the entire park.
Yeah, I second that. I definitely think it's the best place in the entire park. My favorite hike still is Lassen Peak. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's just so cool. I love this park.
Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.